So this right here is the only video you need to watch if you want to learn how to make a Mexican firing squad cocktail at home. Now, the Mexican firing squad cocktail is a classic sour cocktail created sometime in the 1930s at La Cucaracha Cocktail Club in Mexico City. And it was first put to paper in Charles H. Baker Jr.'s book, The Gentleman's Companion, which was written in 1939. And I like to think of this cocktail, the Mexican firing squad cocktail, as very similar to a Jack Rose in that it is a sour cocktail that contains both lime juice and grenadine. The real difference here, and both these cocktails were created at around the same time, completely independently of each other, which is even more fascinating. But the main difference here between the Jack Rose and the Mexican firing squad cocktail is that instead of using Applejack or apple brandy, we're going to be using tequila as our core spirit. And a secondary difference here is that this is different than a lot of other sour cocktails. We're actually going to be using a little bit of Angostura bitters, which adds a nice spice and bittering element to add more complexity and flavor to the cocktail. And there are different versions of the Mexican firing squad cocktail. There is actually a second version that uses a dash or a splash of soda water or sparkling water. And that is an option that you can definitely take if you want to just take the same recipe that I'm using here. You can just add a little bit of soda water or sparkling water, and that'll add a little bit of effervescence and bubbles to the cocktail. Traditionally, the way that I've made it, I don't think there's really a right or wrong answer whether you use sparkling water or not, but the way that I've traditionally made it is without the sparkling water. So that's the way that I'm going to be making it here in this video. And as I mentioned already, it does call for these 4 ingredients here, which are going to be tequila, lime juice, grenadine, and Angostura bitters. So this is basically a sour in that it contains a liquor, a citrus juice, and a sweetener, but then it also does contain a bitter component with the Angostura bitters here. And the exact measurements are going to be very similar to traditional sour cocktails in that it contains 2 ounces of the core spirit or the liquor, 3/4 ounce of the citrus juice, and then 3/4 ounce of sweetener. And that's what we're going to be using here. So 2 ounces of tequila, 3/4 ounce lime juice, 3/4 ounce of the grenadine, and then for the Angostura bitters, that's going to be just 2 dashes. For the exact brands of the bottles that I'm going to be using here, for the tequila, you can honestly use any type of tequila, but for this cocktail specifically, I like to use a type of blanco tequila and one that's 100% blue agave. So the arete here is going to be fitting into that category. Terramana is another one of my go-tos, but really you can honestly use any type of blanco tequila as long as it's 100% blue agave. Then for the lime juice, I'm going to be using Nelly and Joe's Key West lime juice. This is the lime juice that I use exclusively when I'm making videos on this channel or when I'm making cocktails for myself and for my friends and family at home. Then for the grenadine, I'm going to be using Liebherr & Co. Liebherr & Co. along with Liquid Alchemist are my 2 absolute favorite syrup companies. I don't think you can go wrong getting any type of syrup from either of those 2 companies. And this just is another example of that. The grenadine here from Liebherr & Co. is absolutely amazing. Grenadine, for those of you that are not as familiar, is a type of basically like a pomegranate syrup, but I think that's somewhat of an oversimplification because it also does contain orange water and rose water, which add a lot of nice floral and citrusy notes to the ingredient itself, which brings a lot to the cocktail. And then finally, for the bitters, we're going to be using Angostura aromatic bitters. There's really no other option here for when it comes to Angostura bitters. This is the only company that makes this specific type of bitters. So let's get right into making the cocktail. This is going to be a shaken cocktail, as all sours are, because it does contain a citrus juice and a sweetener. So before we add those ingredients here, we're going to just start with the Angostura bitters. So as I mentioned already, it's going to call for 2 dashes of Angostura bitters. 1, 2. Then it's going to call for 3/4 ounce of the grenadine. So there we have our grenadine. Next up after the grenadine is going to call for 3/4 ounce of lime juice. And finally, 2 ounces of your blanco tequila. So now we have all of our ingredients into the smaller tin. Next, I'm going to be adding a couple of ice cubes, specifically 3 ice cubes to the bigger tin. Now we have our ice in this tin and our ingredients in the other tin. Combine everything together, give it a good seal like that, and then shake for about 10 to 15 seconds. Now we have everything nice and combined. Go ahead and unlock the tin. And as I like to do with all shaken cocktails, I like to do the shake and dump method. So what that entails is, now that we've shaken all the ingredients and we have them in the larger tin, go ahead and dump all the ingredients, including the ice, directly into your serving glass. That's just the simplest way to make shaken cocktails at home. And there you have it, Mexican Firing Squad. Cheers. So anyways, that's all I have for today's video. If you found the advice in this video helpful, please go ahead and subscribe to the channel. I like to do 2 styles of videos on this channel. The first will be like this one, where I do a tutorial showing you all how to make a specific cocktail. And the second style of video will be more talking head style, where I go over general tips and tricks, share stories from my own journey, answer questions on bartending or home bartending, go over different guides on different topics and different things like that. That I hope will help you guys become better home bartenders. And finally, if you really want to take home bartending even more seriously, I actually do have a paid community on school.com. That'll be the first link in the description below. Thank you. Cheers.